Let's perform few attacks and techniques exploiting local file inclusion vulnerability and remote file inclusion vulnerability. For this demonstration, we use vulnerable web application, two vulnerable web application. One is that extreme vulnerable web application, another one is damn vulnerable web application. These two vulnerable web application, we use it and exploit those vulnerability. And so initially we go ahead with the DVWA. So to initialize that, we need to start two services. Okay, sudo service apache 2 service. That yes, it's started. And then sudo service mysql start. Okay, let's check service status. MySQL status. Yes, it is up and running. Then let's check Apache status, service status. Yes, it also up and running. Okay, so now DVW is running. You can see here DVWA vulnerable web application is hosted in this web root directory. Let's so Kali Linux will act as a vulnerable web application, and we use Windows mission, and we launch attack from the Firefox web browser of the Windows mission. Okay, 192 DVWA. Yeah. So this is the IP address of the Kali Linux, and let's check that IP address of the Kali Linux here. You can see here 192.168.59.128. Yes. Username admin, password, right? No need to save. Okay, this is the damn vulnerable web applications. So let's check file inclusion, and you can see here file inclusion, three files which is statically can be accessed, and it's a impossible security level. Let's change it to the low and submit, and so that we can exploit those vulnerabilities here. Okay, let's access one file. Okay, here phase file 1.php. So this particular file we will modify tamper http parameters here. So basically we are modifying that URL. Okay, so let us access that etc password, and if you look at it, etc password is stored. Okay, and so this particular file inclusion vulnerability, where is it present? So now we are already in DVWA main folder, and let's go to the vulnerabilities and file inclusion F5, right? This is a file inclusion folder. Okay, this is where actually the vulnerability is present. Let's look at it. And okay, so to get an access to the any other information, first we need to traverse to the root. From there we can access the file whatever we want, right? So here you can see here 6 directory path, and we'll have to go back, means we have to traverse 6 times, and so that we can get to the root. From there we can access the file which we want, like etc password. Okay, and get here slash slash dot dot the slash dot dot slash dot dot slash total how many 6. and then now we are in root directory, etc, then password. Excellent. So now we are able to fetch by tampering URL parameters. So we are able to get slash etc slash password, right? Let's look at here, and you can see here the file. Okay, this is a from where it will, this is a total file content of the etc password, and you can see here this particular one, and then what it is, what root etc password consists. So basically all the users credential and sensitive information is present here. Let's look at for one user. So this is a root, it's a username. X means it is a password which can get or checked in etc shadow file. So here it is not present. Otherwise, in place of X, we will see that a hash password. But when we see X here, it means that we can refer to etc shadow where that password is present. And this is user ID, this is a group ID, and this is additional information of the user in case if it present here, but here it is root now. And then this is the root main directory slash root and slash user bin slash gsh. So this is the shell user get it after successful login. So user get bash shell after successful login. So like this is information we can get it from for all the users. So this sensitive information like directories and path and things like that, and then where we can attacker can launch further attacks. All right. Okay. So the next, so this is how actually we can get to access to the sensitive files, right? Let's change it to the data. Let's look at first view source. You can see here the page we wish to display, just request the page. That's it, nothing else. There is no input validation. As simple as that. And we will change the DVWA security to medium. Let's improve security. Now go back to the file inclusion. Click on this and here filing one. Now can we try the same thing? Like that. etc password. See, we are not able to get anything. It's just blank page. So it means there is some input validation is added with improved security level. Let's view the source code of this. You can look at the source code of this one, file inclusion. The page we wish to display, we are getting the request here. Then input validation. So what it is doing? Dot slash, okay, is replacing it. It is escaping it. And even http colon slash slash https colon slash slash. So if you try to modify that tamper that http parameters and use this tokens or paths to get the files, and then it will not allow, because it's a filtering, it's a validating and escaping it, right? So we'll, in order to exploit that particular thing, where we'll have to input with you know modify such that will not get filtered or not validated, right? Okay, let's use some other mechanism. Let's say dot slash, that is the where input is validated and is escaping it, it is not allowing. So what we do, we will do dot this one. So at any point of time, dot slash, that is not there here. Here 4.2 slash, right? So that way we overcome the filter list, or we overcome input validation, right? Let's see whether we can get it. Dot slash two two dot two dot two more dot is two more dot slash. Let's see whether we can get it or not. Excellent. See, we are able to get it because our input validation, as you already seen in the source code, that it is filtering the dot dot slash. Now we have used a different and bypassing filter, and in order to get sensitive file or access to this one's etc password file, right? Similarly, we can also try maybe so when I why to use a directory traversal path here. See, directly why don't we get password like this etc password, because anyway this validation is not present, we are not using http or https, right? Excellent. For example, let us see 1.txt, we don't, right? So now let's see whether it will working. Excellent. See, now we are able to see it is a password. All right. So this way we are able to bypass that validation mechanism, and still we can get an access to the etc password file. Let's move on to the higher security level so that we can still filter further and then see how we overcome those validation. We will change it to high here. Go to the file inclusion, and here we can change it. And now before that, first we will view the security. You can see here the page we wish to display, we get it here, input validation. Okay, input validation, if it is only one file begin with that, then only it is allows, otherwise it doesn't allow. No http, no https, no dot dot slash or 4 dot 5 dots, any type of filter, any type of path we use, it filter here. It means it allows only file, mentioning the file and then access that path, right? Let's see this. So now we can use this URL, and then we tamper it, we modify with right. Then let us see slash etc password slash we get it, error, right? No more. So because it's getting filtered there and it allows only file. Let's use the file etc password. Excellent. So now we bypass that filter and input validation mechanism, and then still we are able to get access to it. This is how actually we bypass the filters, and then we overcome validation and sanitization, and then still we'll get an access to it. Okay. Let's change it to the DVWA security level to impossible. Right. So now we have increased security level further. Then go to here and then see what is the source code it shows. It implemented validation. You can see here only allow these particular files, nothing else. Even if you tamper file with the file type, but we will not be able to access it because it just allows only these three files, include.php, file1, file2, file3. This is a robust mechanism, right? And so that these are the only static files which will be accessed, no other dynamic files, right? So this is how you can maintain the filter so that it can prevent it, right? If at all, if it's required some dynamic files to be downloaded by the user, then you need to maintain some sort of like a whitelist and privilege restriction, things like that, right? Okay, so go to see, these are the only files, right? Suppose if let me try to include a file etc password. No, it's an error, right? So only these three files only will be able to extract, no other files. That's how actually that input validation implemented in the source file. Okay, let's move on to the this is a local file inclusion, and now we can perform attack exploiting remote file inclusion vulnerability. Okay, let's change DVWA security to low. Go to the file inclusion, and here the remote file inclusion is that instead of local path, okay, we use remote path, that is external site path. So we include http colon slash slash www dot google dot com. Excellent. See, now this is how we are able to fetch or get an access to the external site by exploiting remote file inclusion vulnerability. And we can also get download, you know, file from the external site and then execute it and then provide an access to the reverse shell to the attacker, and then attacker can gain access to the systems and backend systems. Okay, so let's change it to the DVWA level. um, Level. Okay, so here now you know in the what is security level, right? In this level, low level, and then see the source. And here there is no input validation mechanism. So let's change improve security level, and then after that how remote file inclusion will perform. As you already seen it in the source code, and here that dot dot slash and HTTP and HTTPS not implemented, right? So let us try to access a google.com from this HTTP same way. Okay, access it. Now we are not able to because this get filtered and then filtered by due to that input validation. How to overcome, how to bypass that filters, right? And how to overcome that input validation. So why not? They mentioned that only small HTTP, right? I mean lowercase HTTP. Let us use uppercase HTTP. Excellent. See, now by using uppercase HTTP, we are able to get an access to the external site. This is how actually, if you get to know that filters and input validation, then you can try different techniques and then to overcome the validation and security levels and then get an access the one which we want, right? Let me demonstrate PHP reverse shell, how attacker can load PHP reverse shell onto the web server, and then by running and exploiting that file inclusion vulnerability, that can be local or that can be remote, and execute it, and then it sends back reverse shell to the attacker, and from there attacker gain access to the web server, right? Let me demonstrate that. Okay, so let's copy reverse shell user. Yes, the path you can see here. I'm copying from the user share web shell directory to the home Kali. Okay, and the cat PHP reverse shell. I'm in a home directory. Now let's see that I'm in home Kali, and cat the to view the file content. You can see here, and okay, this is the file content of the reverse shell. Okay, and sorry, and so now we got an we can see now file contents. Now let me see that um, see what is the config IP address of the Windows machine. Windows machine will act as an attacker. IP config. You can see here 192.168.59.1 is a Windows machine IP address. This is the attacker, right? So we should, I mean, web server should be able to execute reverse shell script and sends back reverse shell to this particular IP so that attacker can gain complete control over the machine of the over web server. Okay, all right. 192.168.59.1. Okay, let's go back to file and the reverse shell file. Okay, php reverse shell dot php. I can go here. And you can see here this is IP address where we need to modify 192.169.59.1. Okay, we are replacing 127.0.0.1 with the IP address of the attacker machine. Okay, let's keep the port number 1234 where attacker listen to the connection from the web server, right? Okay, I'll say that clear. Right, let's run that web server, and I'll call sudo python my -m simple http server and port number. So we are running that simple http server and port number 9000 from where it can get the http request, that is from users or attackers. All right, okay, so listening on port number 9000 for the http request coming from the users or attacker, right? So now let us run on a netcat listener on Windows machine which acts as attacker, right? Let me command prompt. Okay, so this is a Windows command prompt where it acts as an attacker. So netcat -nvelp port number 1234, that is for the reverse shell connection. Listen to me here carefully. That 9000 port number where we are running web server, that is for the HTTP request coming from the user or attacker, that is coming from the Windows machine here. But whereas here 1234 port number to listen reverse shell connection which is coming on the TCP from web server. If you remember that where reverse shell connection, we have shown that port number 1234 and then attacker IP address, right? So now it's listening on port number 1234. As you know that netcat, it is a to read and write data across networks using TCP and UDP. But by default, it uses TCP. If you want to use UDP, you can specify -u option and then use it. And -n, option N means skip all DNS or service lookups. L means V means verbose output. L means listen for incoming connection. P means source port. That is port number 1234. Okay. So now let's go to the Windows web browser and DVWA and this one, and let's access this and set our security level to the low, right? Okay, low, and then go to the file inclusion, and here page equal to, we will get access to reverse shell, okay, which is downloaded one, or we want to execute it on the, we want to try to as an attacker, we want to try to access to that particular shell script on that machine. Okay, 192. Yeah, 59.128 is the IP address of the Kali Linux where vulnerable web application is running, and 9,000 where that web server is listening to the HTTP request. Okay, 9,000 slash php hyphen reverse shell dot php. This is a shell script where we are trying to access it. You can see here now we got an access, and we'll see whether any connection we got. Super, excellent. So we got a shell, reverse shell from the web server to the attacker, that is to the Windows machine. So now we gained the shell, access to the shell. Now we can run whatever command we want, and it's like completely we control that web server, and even if required, we can even do lateral movement and penetrate into the internal resources which is deployed on internal network as well. Okay, say I want to see that IP config and what is the present working directory and what is the, see these are the files such I can list, and so that I can understand on what are the scripts and files are available on this particular directory. If I want, I can access that cat and etc password, right? And then and we can go to the where, okay, where www html, and then you can see these are the files which are present in the web root directory, and so on. So we can completely control the machine and then run out whatever arbitrary commands which we want, right? Okay, so now let's run that. Now dvwa, you would have already seen that, and in the file inclusion, if you look at this in low, there is no file input validation on this, right? Now let's change it to the okay medium. We improve security level. So and then again perform the same attack, right? And same attack http and colon 192 9000 and php reverse shell. Okay, so before accessing that, let us run netcat listener once more and run this. There is no reverse shell connection here because there is input validation, and let's look at the source here. Input validation, it is filtering http colon and slash slash, right? Okay, so what do we do? Either we can use uppercase, or otherwise we can use any other method where to overcome this input validation. Okay, let us use http colon and another maybe http, right? And so that http colon slash slash it get removed, so we need to have a one more http colon slash slash, right? Okay, let us do colon slash slash, right? So this way this http colon slash slash it get filtered, and still this is http colon slash slash. This way even this get filtered, but we are still overcoming and we are bypassing the filter and we are overcoming input validation, and then still we are able to gain to access to the reverse shell. Excellent. So now see, still we got it, we are able to access to the reverse shell connection, and then we are still can control that even in spite of input validation. This is how we bypass input validation and overcome it and then access it, right? Attackers still it's like a trial and error approach, and then where I wish, and then we can even go through open source documentation and then see, and if you get to know that what is a server and running companies are running, businesses are running, and then we can, if they get to know that the specific version and then web server and libraries, and then we can go through open source documentations, and figure out what is happening there, and accordingly we can see that if any filter mechanisms are already implemented in that existing uh, you know um, um, uh, libraries, and then with the documentation help, and we can also learn that what are the different filter mechanisms are implemented, and then see trial and error approach, and then we can bypass them and then use different mechanisms. If every filter mechanism is in place, and then we can also use encoding mechanism to overcome the input validations, right? So there are various ways means to hack it into the system. Okay, let's close that. So similarly, we can try to, so now I have demonstrated LFI and RFI in one DVWA, and let us, demonstrate it, and one more, vulnerable web application. We can exploit that file inclusion vulnerability in extreme vulnerable web application, another web application. Okay, so let's go to that var.web root directory, and see here I have already deployed and xvwa, right? So this is the one. Okay, so xvwa, and then we can get an access to it, and we have already run that mysql db and then apache server, and then we can get an access to this one, right? Xvwa. Okay, let's go here, and then 192 xvwa, right? Excellent. So now we are able to access to the xvwa, then go to the file inclusion. You can see here file inclusion. Then you can see here file inclusion as an attack that would allow an attacker to access unintended files on the server. It means unauthorized files on the server, which is not supposed to. This vulnerability exploits application functionality to include dynamic files, right? Okay, so let's now exploit this. We can, maybe I will use simple mechanism slash, okay, etc password. Excellent. See, so now we are able to exploit that file inclusion vulnerability in xvwa. I think it is input to validation and sanitizer is missing in this. We will look at the source code and see here it is a password. I am able to access to it, right? So this is how we can exploit vulnerability when another vulnerable web application, which is extreme vulnerable web application, right? Okay, let me show you that the source code, vulnerable source code, and xvwa, and here, and vulnerabilities. Go to vulnerabilities here, and then file inclusion. Yeah, file inclusion here, and cat home.php, and you can look at home.php, right? So this is a file where after it gets http request, and there is no input validation here. Simply it is just checking that is set, then after that it's just getting it, it's trying to including it. It means it's fetches and then just including feedback to the user or attacker, right? So completely input validation is absent or missing here. So this is how actually we can exploit the vulnerability even in xvw as well.